We are now going to begin the second Mishnah in Bava Kama Perak Aleph, Mishnah Bet. We had been talking about the Arba Avot Nazikin, the categories that we of potential that our property can damage other property. Shor, Bor, Mave, and Hever. Now we're going to talk about something that the Mishnah mentioned very briefly, but did not really discuss. Mishnah talked about the qualities each Av had, and it mentioned one of the common qualities was that Hatzad Hashava Shabahem Shadakal Nahazik, they're all dangerous, they're likely to cause damage, Vishmiratan Alecha, that you have to guard them. You have an obligation to watch out to make sure they don't cause damage. You have a cow that is likely to eat something. You have to make sure it has a muzzle or it is otherwise taken care of, kept in a pen, so it doesn't go out and eat other people's things. This is the previous Mishnah. The new Mishnah is beginning, Sh'achavti b'shmirato, hiksharti et nizko. We're going to talk about when you have an obligation to watch something and you don't, that is when you're liable. The opposite of how this ended, that these things have an obligation to be shomer alehem. You have to guard them. You have to watch over them, make sure they don't damage. Here it's going to talk about what happens when you don't do that. So our Mishnah begins, Kol shechavti b'shmirato hiksharti et nizko. Hiksharti b'miktat nizko. Chavti b'tashlumin kahechsher kol nizko. We're going to continue the rest of this afterwards. I'm going to focus on these two lines right now. While we begin, I do want to draw your attention to another tool we have, the Merkava.com. That is ThemerCava.com. See the website right here. That is a tool that can help you understand and review the Mishnah. I'm going to go through the Mishnah with you right now, but in your own time, as a review, potentially even sometimes while we're in Shir, this is a very good use. It's a very good tool. The tool basically works. You click part of the Mishnah. We're going to go with the last one. Arba Avot Nazikin. Over here we highlight the phrase, and over here it gives you a translation. It's very good for going through different sections of the Mishnah, which is exactly what I'm going to do with you right now. You can see how it works in our new Mishnah. Kol shechavti b'shmirato. Whenever I'm under the obligation of controlling anything in my possession. We're going to go through that now together in our Mishnah begins kol. Very often the Mishnah will say kol. It means not just everything, but any circumstance that fits a certain category. This circumstance that is shechavti. I have a chiyuv. Chav, coming from the word chiyuv, I have an obligation. Kol, circumstance, every circumstance. Shechavti, I am obligated. B'shmirato, which means that because I am under the guardianship, I am supposed to be watching out for this thing. It's my property. I have an obligation to watch out for it. Kol shechavti b'shmirato, I have to watch out for it. Hiksharti et nizko. It's as if I were hikshir, the nezek, the damage. Hekshir means like kasher, the word kosher, means it's fit to eat. The hakshir is to make something able to do something else. The hakshir is to make, let's say, you have a dish that's not kosher, has not kosher food in it, strafe. L'hakshir is to make it fit to be used to eat from. You take it and you put it in boiling water, whatever it is, not a kshir on kashrut, you make it fit. If you are obligated in something, it is as if you prepared it to be damaged, which means you need to take the proper steps to make sure it is mishumar, to make sure that it is guarded, and if you don't, even though you didn't intentionally damage it, is that if you hiksharti et nizko, you made it very likely to become damaged. For example, a case of, I'm going to give an example of what's not this. A case of a car accident where you weren't paying attention and you wound up crashing the car. That's your fault. That is not hikshir et nizko. That's causing the nizko, causing the damage. If I would light a fire intentionally and it spread and burnt someone's house intentionally, that's not hikshir et nizko. That's causing nizko. Hikshir et nizko would be where I was lighting a fire and I wasn't careful. I know I'm supposed to pick a fire pit with nothing around it and it's supposed to have water available. I didn't do that. I was negligent. I wasn't careful, responsible in how I made it. That's as if I prepared it to cause damage. I'm going to be obligated in that damage because it was my responsibility to make sure nothing would happen to it. I didn't do that, and now it's caused a problem. The opposite of this kind of case would be what's called onus. Onus is when it's completely out of my control. Let's say I'm walking down the street and my foot touches a landmine and it blows up and it causes a fire and it spreads and it lights someone's house on fire. Now, technically, my action was involved in causing that damage. But there was no responsibility. I don't have to be careful of landmines wherever I walk. I shouldn't expect there are landmines wherever I walk. There's certain things that are beyond a reasonable consideration that I'm not responsible for. I shouldn't have to worry about those. That's not the Kshartit Nizko. Something under my responsibility, in my jurisdiction, I'm in charge of it, that's what I have to watch out for. The Talmud, which is brought by the Bartanur, the commentary on our Mishnah, gives an example. It says, imagine you take a cow. Now, a cow has multiple things that it can cause damage to. It can do shore, just walking and break something because it's walking clumsily. It could do mave, it could start eating something. There's another ab, which we haven't learned about, called keren, which is when it attacks something. All these things are possible when you're dealing with a live animal. You have to be very careful with dealing with a live animal. So, the Gemara says, there's an example, if I give over a cow, give over a shore to a child, and say, here, watch this. Now, this little guy is very cute. He does not strike me as a very good shepherd. He does not strike me as someone who's responsible enough to take care of a cat. In fact, I would say some children are actually so irresponsible, they think it's funny to let the cow do something it's not supposed to do. The cow's going to wind up causing nezek, and the kid is going to laugh about it. The child is not someone who is responsible because he doesn't have the maturity to be responsible. If I personally, as an adult, give over that cow to the child, it's hiksharti et nizko. I am preparing that damage. Even though I wasn't the one watching the cow at the time, I'm not the one causing the damage, because it was my responsibility to take care of the cow, and I handed that responsibility off to someone who wasn't able to handle it. It's as if I caused the damage. A similar example would be like I give a box of matches to a young child. A young child is not responsible enough, is not mature enough to play with fire. Really, no one should be playing with fire. So even though I didn't light a single match, none of this fire came from me. It came from something that I had the responsibility of taking care of. That's the matches. I should not give matches to something that's going to cause it to be damaged. It's as if the child is an extension of me. When the child plays with the fire and is irresponsible, causes a fire, it's not the child's fault. They should never have been given the matches in the first place. It's my fault. Hiksharti et nizko. Kol shechavti b'shmirato. Anything I'm obligated to guard to make sure there's no damage. Hiksharti et nizko. I'm responsible as if I got the damage ready to happen myself. We discussed another case in the first Mishnah of bor. Now we mentioned that bor if you dig a hole and leave it uncovered and an animal falls in, if it's 10 tefachim or less, you're actually only chayav if the animal is injured. If the animal dies, you would not be, because 10 tefachim is not deep enough to reasonably cause death, and we consider it as if it was a fluke, a coincidence, and it wasn't really your fault. If the hole is 10 tefachim or more, that's enough that it could cause death, and it's your responsibility to make sure that it's covered. By not covering it, it's as if you killed the animal. You're responsible for its death. You created a deadly situation where the animal could die. You're obligated. What happens, though, in sort of a combination situation? Shmerel's out there, and he's digging a hole, and he digs it 9 tefachim. Now, if an animal walks into that hole and gets injured, he's completely chayav. He's completely chayav to pay tashlumin nezek. It's his fault. It's the av of bor. Now, if the animal dies in that hole, shmerel is patur. Wouldn't have to, because we consider that the animal to have already been somewhat injured. It's not likely to cause death. That's the classic case. What's not so classic? Shmerel digs 9 tefachim hole, and Beryl shows up and digs one more tefach. After that happens, now we have 10 tefachim, enough to kill an animal. An animal comes, the animal falls in, sure enough, it dies. Who is at fault? Now, you could say most of the hole was dug by Shmerel, the first guy, who dug 9 tefachim. He did most of it. He's the one that caused the whole problem. What did Beryl do? He dug 1 tefach. Nothing. The Mishnah tells us that's not true. Hiksharti b'miktzat nizko, chavti b'tashlumin kehechsher kol nizko. If hiksharti, I made it possible b'miktzat nizko, in part of the damage, I took up a little bit of part in this, a little bit. Chavti b'tashlumin kehechsher kol nizko. I am obligated, chavti b'tashlumin, in paying back, as if I caused all of the damage. Beryl came and did just a little bit. He dug a little bit of a hole. He is obligated in the entire thing as if he dug 10 tefachim, as if he's the one that's responsible for the death of the animal. He says, someone digs 9 tefachim in a public space. Somebody else comes and completes the hole to be 10 tefachim. An animal falls in there. Ha'achron chayav. A last person, the person who made it a full situation of a 10 tefach bor, he's the one that is responsible. It says, because you took a situation that was not deadly and made it possible to be deadly, that is the person who's going to be chayiv in all of the nezek. An example that I would give now, let's say somebody very, very irresponsibly poured something flammable all over a room and walked out. Now, if something happens accidentally and there's a fire that's caused, that person should be responsible. They made a flammable situation. It's very likely to catch on fire. Now, if somebody else comes and lights a match and just leaves it there, or a candle and leaves it there, even though they didn't pour the flammable stuff, since they're the ones who are causing the last bits, they're really enabling the entire thing to happen. The point of this Mishnah, the first part, this is the Reisha of the Mishnah, is they really say, Kol shachavti mishmirato, we have the achrayut to take care of our things, to take care of our surroundings, to make sure that we don't damage them. That our things don't cause damage. Even though we're not physically, intentionally causing damage, if our things do it because we didn't give it proper shmirah, we are as if we're causing this damage. We're preparing it to happen. We didn't want to, but it's what happens. The last part of this Mishnah, now that we've said that we have the responsibility, the achrayut, to take care of our things and guard against damage, the Mishnah is going to list certain cases that are patur. They do not have to pay for damages they caused. We're going to get into that later on together. We're going to have an activity where you guys can teach each other.